Hello, it's Steve. Today we're going to show you how to change the drive blade on the auger assembly on your refrigerator, and it's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a Phillips screwdriver, a 1/4-inch nut driver, a small flat blade screwdriver, and a pair of pliers. Let me show you how we do it. Now, the first step in this repair will be to open up the freezer door. Then we're going to remove that whole ice bin assembly, so just lift it up at the front and pull it straight out. And we should also reach in and turn the ice maker off while we do the repair. So next we're going to dump any ice that is in the bin out, and then we're going to set this on a suitable workplace where we can do the repair. Now, to make this job a little easier, we'll first of all remove this shield at the front. So just push it back far enough that we can access the little clips on the side, and just spread those enough. Just unclip those from the top edge of the ice bin. Set that aside. That will give us access to these 2 Phillips screws at the front. And next we're going to remove 2 more that go through this metal bracket into the front cover. And then we can remove and discard the cover. Now next we're going to remove 2 screws that secure that mounting plate to the front, as well as one here at the back that secures the actuator arm. And just take note of how that spring and bracket are mounted on the bottom, because as we release that, that spring will rotate out of position. Now we can pull that whole assembly away from the ice bin. And you just need to lift up on the top edge to disengage it. As we pull that out, the rear bearing for the auger will come off. Set that aside, and then remove the bin and set it aside. Next we're going to remove this E-ring from the end of that shaft. So just take a flat blade screwdriver and gently pry it away from that nut, as well as the thrust washer. Set those aside. Then we're going to remove these 3/4-inch hex head screws. And these secure the cover to the metal bracket. Now as we pull this cover off, we'll take note of how that little block sits into an opening in the cover. You may need to disengage the lever on the side enough that we can rotate everything into position, and then slide it out through the opening. And then we'll set that aside. And then we can disassemble the blades from the auger shaft. So using our pliers, just grasp that shaft. And loosen that nut. Now before you take that apart, if you wish, you can take a digital camera and take a picture of how these components go together, which will make reassembly easier, or just lay them out in the order that you remove them. So we start with a nylon nut, then a blade, and the blade is numbered, number 3, and then there's a tapered spacer, and then the solid blades and one center blade can come out as a unit. Another tapered spacer and blade number 1. You can then pull that plastic cover right off of the shaft and remove the old drive blade and discard it. Now when reinstalling that new drive blade, you'll note that it is stamped on one side up, and that will be pushed on so that when it's sitting on its round end, that portion will point upwards. We'll reassemble the plastic component next, taking note that there are 2 grooves or slots where that drive blade will fit into, and then we'll assemble the blades. We'll start with the first blade with the number pointing outwards, tapered spacer, the center blade and fixed blades, another tapered spacer, blade number 3, and then the nylon or plastic nut on the end of the shaft. Use caution threading that on that we don't get it cross-threaded. And then tighten it with the pliers. Now that center portion should swing freely, and the 3 blades will be staggered like this. And when it's sitting flat, that block should lay flat on the bottom. So next we'll push that through the opening in the metal bracket. Now, if during the disassembly the crusher lever became disengaged from the crusher door in the front, I'll show you how to reinstall that. Rotate the crusher lever until it protrudes all the way through this opening. And we'll just angle it into position like that so that it hooks onto that door. And we'll pull it back up against the housing. We'll rotate that arm so that the little detent fits in behind and in front of that metal bracket so that it can't go back and forth. Now at this point, we can rotate the assembly around. And then we're going to line up that fixed blade block into the opening on that cover. Slide it into position. And then rotate the cover to line up the screw holes. And then install one of those 1/4 inch hex head screws just to hold it. Rotate the assembly around and install the remaining screws. Now, we'll tighten all of those screws, and we'll also verify that our crusher lever arm is in the proper position. And we'll make sure that we've got that auger pushed all the way through this opening in the front. We'll put the flat washer in place, and then we'll install that E-ring. So slide it into the groove on the end of that plastic nut, and take your pliers and snap it into position. And now we can install the assembly back in the ice bin. Slide the auger through that opening at the front. Install the rear bearing on the end of the auger shaft, and that will fit into the opening at the rear of the ice bin. And then this metal bracket is going to fit down over the front of the bin, and there are 2 little slots that those tabs will sit down into to position it properly. Now with those properly in position, just carefully roll it over and make sure these 2 tabs are sitting on top of those plastic projections on the bottom of the ice bin. Install the retaining screws. We'll reinstall the spring and retaining bracket at the back. So we're going to hook that spring over that plastic projection. We'll line the bracket up directly over the center of it and then push it into position. Tighten the screw and then check the action of that arm. It should open and close the crusher door. Now we're ready to put the faceplate on. So sit the bin up right, and we're going to line that faceplate up with it. You should see the two spots for these screws to go in on the bottom. Rotate it around, and we'll put the screws on the inside. And we can now put that shield back in place, snap it down over the top edge of the ice bin, push it forward. And now we're ready to put the ice bin back in the refrigerator. So when reinstalling that, we just want to make sure that we have the dry block at the back lined up with the forks on the auger motor. Remember to turn the ice maker on. And just slide the bin all the way in, making sure that it locks in place. And our repair is complete.